Now to let it rip, and we're once again going in depth in the race for the governor. Tonight, we're joined by West Michigan realtor Ryan Kelley. He's one of the 5 Republican candidates who gathered enough signatures to qualify for the August primary ballot, but he's the only one to be raided and arrested by the FBI last week, making headlines and now facing 4 misdemeanor charges because of that, related to what the feds say he did at the riot at the U.S. Capitol on January 6th of last year. Mr. Kelley, it's good to see you. We thank you for joining us today. We'll get to your campaign in a moment here, but first, we want to be able to address some of these charges, these criminal charges. You pleaded not guilty. You're saying you did nothing illegal on that day on January 6th.
That's correct. There was no crime that was committed. And I guess maybe here we are, almost a year and a half later, and maybe the crime is doing well in the Michigan governor race. We see some of these polls that I'm the front runner, that's just an indication for me to work twice as hard. Joe Biden goes on Jimmy Kimmel talking about arresting his political opponents, same time as the J6 committee hearings that start back up in prime time. And then I'm arrested at my house, raided by the FBI. So the timing's not a coincidence, my friend.
Well, let's talk for a moment about what happened on that day from what you remember. We have video, of course, that you've seen a million times, probably don't want to see a heck of a lot of it now, but we hear you pretty clearly saying, "This is war, baby," as you're approaching and on the steps of the Capitol.
Come on, let's go. This is war, baby.
Do you regret that sentiment that you were yelling?
So to clarify a couple of things here real quick, that video, absolutely baseless claim. That is not me that is saying that, number one. Number two, I never entered the U.S. Capitol building. So, both of those allegations are both absolutely inaccurate. And, with pending litigation, there's more of the story and how this is going to play out that's going to come in the near future.
So you're telling me that the voice that we heard in that video, even though people are saying it's you, you're saying that simply is not the case. That wasn't you.
That's accurate. Yeah. People making those false allegations right there. And the dishonest media is trying to push that out. But yeah, that's absolutely inaccurate there. That is not me saying that.
We're giving you the opportunity to speak your mind and say what you feel and what you believe to be true on this program. And as we do that, I want to ask you this next question. Do you think this incident and the FBI coming to your door, as you say, with your kids having to watch all of this, all of that trauma that you say you went through, actually helped you in the polls?
I can tell you that we see recent polls coming out where I have now a commanding lead in some of these polls. The Detroit Free Press told me today when I was at the Capitol for an event, they have a new poll that's coming out, and they said that I have a 4 or 5 point lead, still the front runner in the race. I think that the support has been incredible. The amount of people that have messaged online, called, sent emails, a variety of even letters. We've even got letters in the mail. And it's just been overwhelming support, and name recognition is boosted through the roof now as well. We've been on all sorts of shows nationwide and even global, my friend. It's been the talk of the planet.
Well, let's talk for a moment about the insurrection day and the January 6th day and what happened on that day. When you take a look at that, there's many Republicans, even here in Michigan, who are watching this right now and saying, you know what? I supported President Trump up until that point. I support people's right to protest peacefully. But for those who went into the Capitol, not saying you did, that was wrong. And that was an embarrassment in our country, what happened on January 6th. Would you agree?
Everybody's going to have their own opinions on what they think personally. And so I can't speak to each and every individual's personal opinion. But we do know
Kelley,
that
do you think it was embarrassing? Do you think it was an embarrassing day for this country, January 6th?
I think that January 6th was a day that has a lot of mixed opinions. And just like the plot to kidnap the governor, where there was a lot of FBI involvement, there's still a lot of things to determine whether or not there was FBI involvement in everything that happened on January 6th. And should anybody think it was an embarrassment, where did that embarrassment come from? Was it, involvement from a certain group such as the FBI or someone else? Or did things naturally occur, right? And, there's so many different viewpoints and so many different media narratives on that. I guess, we're going to allow people to have their own opinions. And
sure, but Mr. Kelley, wouldn't you argue that the people who are breaking through the barricades and going into the Capitol, screaming and yelling and sitting in the speaker's house and putting their feet up on the desk and hurting people, that particular part, that was wrong, right?
You know what? It's absolutely wrong to be busting out the windows, and being disrespectful in that manner. You should not be fighting with police officers in that aspect. So, yeah, we're on the same page there that, violence should not be a means to achieve political ends. And that goes across the spectrum, too. We see Democrats that have championed on so much violence throughout 2020, yet this is the instance they have a problem with.
Let's talk about this race back here in Michigan. This has been a very strange election year. If you really think about it, we just had on our show last week Chief James Craig, the former chief of Detroit Police, and also Perry Johnson. What are your thoughts on them becoming write-in candidates? I know Perry is still thinking about it, but Craig actually filed his paperwork.
Yeah, it's interesting to see how it all unfolded, right? 10 candidates down to 5. My personal opinion on that is that it's the wrong move for them, right? I feel bad that they bought fraudulent signatures, but as candidates, it is their role to oversee the campaign. And that was the first step in becoming an actual candidate to be on the ballot that wasn't overseen properly. I think that needs to be, something that's taken into consideration with voters. And I think it's probably not going to work out well for them. I don't think a write-in campaign is going to bring them the votes. And, they couldn't execute that task properly. So, there's questions about how they would be able to govern or whether or not, through a write-in campaign, they're going to be effective as well.
Are you weary at all of the power that James Craig may have as a write-in candidate?
Not at all, no.
What about Tudor Dixon, Mr. Kelley? Let's talk about her for a moment. Taking pictures with the Police Association of Michigan, the head of that, and also with former President Trump. He mentioned her by name in one of his speeches when he came to Michigan, and that was it. Do you need Trump support to win this election?
He mentioned her name there in that rally. Tudor has been taking a lot of pictures with people. Likewise, so have I. I've traveled all over the state. And when the Trump came into town, I spent most of my time walking around the audience, connecting with the people all across this great state. And I also have a photo with President Trump as well. So I don't know that that's the indicator right there of the outcome of this election. He hasn't endorsed anybody yet. We have just over 6 weeks till the primary. We'll see if he makes a move on that.
We know that sometimes when he makes endorsements, they fall flat. Other times they're helping candidates soar. In Michigan, where do you put the temperature on that at right now?
It'll be interesting to see, which candidate he would get behind. I think he might stay out of this race, possibly, right? There's some indicators on that. And I think that might be interesting since he's waited so long. Just let the candidates kind of work themselves out and see who comes out on top based on the people of Michigan. But, I think that myself being on his radar and many others, it'll be an interesting choice to see which direction he goes should he decide to endorse in the Michigan governor race.
We only have a quick minute or two left here. I wanted to ask you what sets you apart from other candidates and what makes you, as a realtor from that area, a good choice to lead the state of Michigan?
Great question there. Leading by action is the most important thing we can do. We can make websites with fancy talking points or talk about what we're going to do. But, my friend, when push comes to shove and we need to stand up by our actions, that's when we truly see who is who. I recently boycotted the Mackinac Policy Conference because of their vaccine requirements and their segregation of the governor's debate. I've been standing up for medical freedom, standing with doctors. Throughout 2020, I pushed back very publicly against the Whitmer tyranny. I'm a small business owner. I love this country. My wife and my 6 children, we have reasons to fight for the future of our country. I'm a proven fighter. And I have a proven 100-day plan that has been just fire all around the entire state here, being handed out and passed around. And I think we're ready for somebody that we know by their actions is going to fight for our state and not just by their words. And that's Ryan Kelley. So vote Ryan Kelley on August 2nd.
Can a Republican win against the incumbent in Michigan right now, Governor Gretchen Whitmer?
Absolutely. Today, Dana Nessel talked about having drag queens in every school, right? That's major news going around right now. And there's pictures of Whitmer with drag queens and this radical extremism they want to push on our schools, the social justice agenda, the hormone blockers. This is not what normal, regular Americans want. They're focused on the J6 committee when we have high record inflation, gas prices, food prices, baby formula shortages, and they're focused on all of the wrong things that truly matter to Michiganders, and they're ready to go the other direction, away from Whitmer into a common sense direction. And those conservative values with Ryan Kelley are what going to lead Michigan to prosperity and freedom.
Republican candidate for Michigan Governor Ryan Kelley. We thank you so much for your time today. Thanks for taking the time out of your evening to speak with us today.
Thank you, sir. Good to be here.
And welcome back to Let It Rip. Charlie Langton joins us with our political panel, which is comprised of Tori Sachs, Executive Director of the Michigan Freedom Fund, Greg Bowens, founder of the political consulting firm Bowens & Company, and James David Dixon, formerly of the Detroit News, but who's just taken a new job as managing editor of Michigan Capital Confidential at the Mackinac Policy Institute. We also have Lori Rutledge, a health food advocate, former steam engineer, and a Democrat running for Congress in the 13th Congressional District. We welcome all of you to the show. Thanks for joining us. Greg, we'll begin with you. You heard Ryan Kelley in the interview we just did. Ryan Kelley, of course, saying he did nothing wrong on January 6th. Do you believe him?
No, I don't believe him. And the reason why I don't believe him is because just by being there, he was participating in trying to overthrow the government, trying to delay the certification. So was he inside the Capitol? I don't know. I mean, I guess the FBI will prove the charges that they're going to be able to prove before a jury of 12. But just from a sort of moralistic kind of viewpoint, participating at all in this effort should, disqualify you from becoming governor.
Does it bother you from a legal point of view? I want to get Charlie in the mix here right after you, Greg. The fact that we're talking about misdemeanors, yet the FBI comes, raids his house on the same day as the 1-6, hearings that were going to begin that day. Not a coincidence, a lot of people are saying. And do you think that was an overreaction, an overstep?
No, not at all. I mean, this is what the FBI does. They knock on your door, they come and get you. And I think that, the charges that you get initially may not be the charges that you end up with. And so the Justice Department is famous for saying, we'll go where the evidence leads us. And so we'll have to wait and see on that. But the guy gets a little bump because his name is out there in the press. In relationship to this, people and the Republican primary voters, those that are really focused on trying to defend Donald Trump and the big lie, of course they'll support him. He seems like a victim in all this. But when it gets down to the general election, I don't think that people are going to have the same kind of sympathetic viewpoint.
Charlie Langton, when you take a look at this from a legal point of view and a journalistic point of view, you see, the FBI come knocking at his door. His kids are watching, all for misdemeanors. Was this an overstep?
No, I mean, I think the FBI decides they can do whatever they want to do whenever they want to do it. I mean, I think the timing is a little suspect, perhaps. But, listen, if they believe they've got the charges and they can prove a case, they're going to prove a case. I don't like it. It says something when you get a bump in the polls when you're arrested. I mean, that's kind of bothersome to me. So whoever is supporting this obviously doesn't think much of the charges. That's the political side of the thing. Legally, it'll play out in court. It's a misdemeanor. Like the other charges, you'll probably get a fine. It's almost like spitting on the sidewalk. The feds don't usually go through all this for misdemeanors. Maybe they want him to do something else, maybe use some evidence or run on someone. I don't know. I think we've got a lot of investigation on January 6th, but politically here, I think the state's got a lot of other important issues that should be decided. And when we start talking about January 6th, it only helps Ryan Kelley. Doesn't hurt him at all.
Tori Sachs, that has been the case. As you heard, we talked to Ryan Kelley. He says, hey, it's been great. He's gotten more press. His numbers bumped up. But the question that I asked him that I want to ask you, was January 6th a proud day for America?
No, but neither is today. People can't afford gas to go to work. They can't afford groceries at the grocery store. They can't buy, for a long time, I have young children, you couldn't buy baby formula on the shelves. There are a lot of things that are going on in this country that are not being addressed. And I think most people probably who are watching this want to know, when am I going to be able to pay for gas that's below $5 a gallon? Diesel's over $6, right? All these things are real problems that are affecting people. And Governor Gretchen Whitmer just vetoed her third bill that would have provided relief, either at the pumps or income tax cuts, other kinds of tax cuts to people. She's vetoed 3 bills in the last 4 months, and we're not talking about that right now. And so we need to, because people need real solutions forward. And I think that's what they're looking for at the polls and in who's going to be their next governor.
Well, let's talk to someone who wants to be your next congressperson. Lori, to Tori's point here, are voters worried about January 6th, or are they more concerned about pocketbook issues like paying $5 for a gallon of gas?
People are more concerned about what's happening today, not January 6th. Everybody is talking about how high gas is. You know, people are struggling, people who need baby formula, ladies needing personal items. That's what people are focused on today. I think we really need to move past January 6th. I watched the hearings. Actually, I learned from the second hearing, and I came to this conclusion. President Trump defeated himself by him telling his supporters not to vote through absentee or through mail-in ballots. He defeated himself. He encouraged his supporters to do what they did, and therefore he was defeated. And we need to move past it. It's time for us to move on.
James, it seems like President Biden blames a lot of things on President Putin of Russia. We hear this very often, almost weekly, in his news conferences when he talks to reporters. You think people are buying it?
No, because if you listen to Team Biden itself, things like high gas prices are actually what they want. So what you and I think are high gas prices, and that's a bad thing because it affects our real life, they think are great news. Jennifer Granholm has said this. Many people have said this on Team Biden, where basically they believe conditions will be so bad that you'll be forced to get a green vehicle or will be forced to switch to clean energy. So it's important to understand.
James, you think that the reason gas prices are being driven high is to push electric cars?
I think they don't think it's bad. So we all think of it as a problem and are hoping government will do something to fix it. That's not their inclination. So we're asking them to do something they don't want to do. They want it to hurt enough so that there's a transition.
Greg Bowens, does it bother you that President Biden talks so much about Putin whenever he's talking about the issues we're having here at home?
No, it doesn't bother me. And I think that James is making a pretty oversimplification when it comes to the position that Democrats have about these kitchen table issues. You know, we ride the wave of highs and lows because we are a prisoner of the oil industry. And while gas prices are at a 40-year high, corporate profits from Mobil, Exxon, and all those guys are also at a 40-year high. So I get it. Look, what we have is we live in a democracy and our economy is a capitalistic system. If the democracy fails, the capitalism is not going to work. You need to have a functioning democracy in order for capitalism in our economy to flourish. And you can't do one without the other.
But who's going to take care of the gas prices? I mean, these gas prices are out of control. Mortgage rates are out of control right now. I mean, we can't get baby formula. People can't work. Are all jobs available? Nobody's working. Something's going on. And yet we see them be very distracted, even in Ukraine. I mean, we got a lot of problems right here. And I think until we start fixing our own house, we shouldn't be talking about anything else. And January 6th was a year and a half ago.
Exactly. And can I interject there?
Sure.
You know, we continuously hear about Ukraine. Billions of dollars are being sent over there. No one can account for so much of that money. We need money spent here, right in our district. They over to another country that's not a NATO country, already talking about rebuilding it, when actually we have decades-old blight and squalor in our district. We need to change the policies. That needs to stop.
Well, you know, what's interesting is that when you do spend money here, like the checks that people got during the pandemic, the Republicans start crying and say, you know, this is the reason why we have inflation. You gave people money for nothing, as opposed to looking at it as a way for people to buy formula and buy gas and make ends meet. And so
If that was the case, Governor Whitmer just vetoed bills that would have lowered gas prices, that would have let people keep more of their own money. She just vetoed 3 different bills in 4 months that would have done that. Giving the money away, even the Fed said the people in Biden's own administration have now admitted they knew it would create inflation and they didn't say anything.
But it was okay, Tori, when Trump did it, right? So when Trump gave checks away and made sure that he signed them, that it had his signature on it, you were all good with it. But when a Democrat does it, you're all pissy about it, talking about
let's talk for a moment about let's talk about some news of the week that we just heard. Tori, I want to begin with you with this one. Attorney General Dana Nessel said last night at an event that there should be a drag queen in every school. Now, she says she was joking, but was that a smart or a bright thing to say?
I don't know that she was joking, because then the second part of that clip, after Dana Nessel called for a drag queen to be in every school, she said that it would actually help children with their mental health or something. Look, kids are behind in school. We need focusing on math and reading and learning and school safety. That's what I'm a mom. I have 4 kids, in school. That's what we're focused on. When the Attorney General makes a flippant comment about drag queens in school, I have 2 questions for Dana Nessel. 1, how many Bloody Marys did you have before you said that? And 2, is the drag queen going to be next to the guidance counselor, or where exactly does she think they belong in our kids' schools?
Lori, when you heard the Attorney General talking about that, did that bother you at all?
I don't agree with a drag queen being in every school. I don't see how that would benefit the children at all. I don't agree with that.
Charlie Langton, we know that Dana Nessel, shoots from the hip, speaks, as a joke, often flippantly about this, that, and the other, but she is the Attorney General. Should she be watching what she says?
Well, yeah, but she just got the drag queen vote for sure. I mean, listen, if they're good teachers, what do we care? I think that's the point of it. Do we care what kind of orientation, race, religion, as long as these people, all people, are good people, honest people, and they can do the job? I think that is far more the focus on whatever else it is. And
Charlie, what you just said is so important, because you talked about doing the job, right?
Yeah.
And such an idea, the job is to educate kids.
Yes.
The videos we're seeing is so often it's teachers seeking affirmation from their students. That's not the job. And so the whole dynamic is so
affirmation between the students. Listen, if the teachers are teaching kids and the kids are going on and being successful, fantastic. That's the benchmark to me.
That's not true with
you know what, you guys, there's a ton of education on this panel right here, and yet people are acting as if we don't understand what she was talking about. Now, when you have Republicans who are running for governor who are saying they're going to take the Don't Say Gay bill and supercharge it here in Michigan, then the idea that we should be more open and tolerant is what she was getting to. Not about, literally put a drag queen in every school, but whether or not we can be accepting of the idea and support our children who don't always fit in a necessarily straight box for you. People
they
are
weren't supporting kids when they locked them out of school. They are supporting kids when they still force
masks. You guys are talking about kids are falling behind in education as if we didn't just have a pandemic, as if people weren't learning online. And I tell you what, before this happened, you Republican folks were running around talking about we could just do charter schools online. Kids don't need to be in school.
Greg.
Pardon me? Tori, is that true that we need more tolerance inside of the schools, and that's what the Attorney General meant?
People want their kids to go to school and learn. They want to be involved in their kids' education. What we heard from the Democratic Party earlier this year, the same Democratic Party that Dana Nessel belongs to, was that they don't think that parents should have a say in their kids' education. That's what this comes down to. The Democrats believe that they control our kids, and they don't.
And we're going to continue this conversation on the other side of the break. That's the time we have for now. Thank you for our panel. We're going to come back hopefully for some final thoughts after this. Final thoughts, let's go to Lori.
My name is Lori Rutledge, and I'm running for U.S. Congress District 13. And I'm asking for your support because a vote for me is a vote for you.
Tori Sachs, 10 seconds.
Governor Whitmer, Dana Nessel, and Jocelyn Benson have routinely used their powers to attack their political opponents. It's time to retire them in November. James, your thoughts?
Why is Dana Nessel talking about drag queens rather than Flint?
Greg Bowens.
Governor Whitmer, Dana Nessel, and everybody at the top of the ticket there are doing a great job under difficult circumstances. And, I certainly encourage them to keep on keeping on. But a drag queen in every school.
That does it for this edition of Let It Rip. We thank you for joining us today, and thanks to our panel as well.